and you wake up the next day and you're like, oh my God, everything looks more vivid. Your body temperature isn't, as a heroin addict, you're so used to the hot and cold, hot and cold. And so everything balances out and you just feel at peace for the first time in, since whenever you started your journey with substance abuse.
Have you managed to not use heroin since that
Yeah, man. Yeah,
experience?
I'll have 11 years in December, on the 2nd of December.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. Fasten those seatbelts and strap in. We'll get you to those margaritas ASAP.
Hola, bonjour. Ciao, bella, mesdames et messieurs. Salam and salam.
Hey, how are you? Welcome back to Drop a Pin. So on our second episode ever, I talked about this magic mushroom retreat I went on down in Mexico, and I made a friend down there named Josh, who also goes by Fatherhood the rapper. Yeah, look him up on Spotify. But he had a fascinating story to me because he used Ibogaine to get off of pills and heroin.
Very different from what I'm on, lamotrigine, which is for bipolar disorder.
Very different. And Ibogaine can be traced back to like a West African plant or something like that. I don't know if that's the case with your bipolar medication.
No, I think that's Johnson & Johnson research via the Harvard Medical School.
All right. But yeah, I mean, very fascinating interview. I think it's probably one of our more serious podcasts, but this guy can speak. He's very eloquent.
Yeah.
And hopefully you guys aren't struggling with those same problems, but it's it's very interesting to learn about nonetheless.
I bet there's a couple heroin head pinheads.
For sure. Well, especially pillheads.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially pillheads for sure.
Pop a couple, throw the pot on.
Yeah,
it's nice.
It's,
and not just that, at the end of the show, we have another high school, but this time it is with Baldstool Sam, who has become a Drop a Pin favorite.
Yes.
Over the course of the several months that we've been doing this now. He walks us through a lot of, I guess, European history.
Yeah, kind of like he goes all the way back to like which humans first settled Europe.
Yeah, it's a very fast. I was fascinated whenever he was talking about it. It's great.
It was actually the first high school we ever recorded, but like it's a very kind of like deep, complicated topic. So I was like, maybe we'll just ease people into the concept of high school.
Yeah.
And then we'll ramp it up to.
But either way, when he was smoking a little bit and he was like crazy knowledgeable and put everything together. But that's the interview that we have today. That's the show that we have. Let's get started with it.
Hey, how are you? Welcome back to Drop a Pin. Today we have my guy Josh on the pod, who I met on a magic mushroom retreat in Mexico. But we're not here to talk about boomers. We're here to talk about the drug Ibogaine, which you have a very personal experience with. And we're going to talk about its roots in West Africa and how it spread across the world and became sort of controversial at the moment. So, Josh, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you first discovered Ibogaine?
Absolutely, man. Donnie, thank you so much for having me, man. I appreciate you, dude. It's crazy series of events that brought us together. So
Yes,
it's really awesome to get to hop on here with you. Yeah, man. So Ibogaine, it's a little bit of a buzzword right now. Every major podcast, you got Joe Rogan, Aubrey Marcus, all these big podcasters are talking about Ibogaine right now. It's because recent legislation passed in Texas legalizing Ibogaine, and same with Colorado. So it's a very buzzword right now. So there's a lot of information about it that I think people maybe do or don't know, and its origins are really fascinating, man. So me personally, actually, sorry, before I do that, I will say I'll give a little introduction for myself. So my name is Joshua. I go by Fatherhood the rapper. I make hip hop music. I'm a father. I have 5 wonderful children. I've been in recovery for 10 years. I was a heroin addict. And, now I'm an advocate. I work in addiction and recovery services. So I help people, find Ibogaine and other alternative modalities, alternative to the traditional rehab and, detox centers. So that's a little bit of my background there. And I guess I'll just kind of dive in on what introduced me to Ibogaine. So let's take it back to 2009. Okay. So 2009, I'm a dumb kid. I pick up a book. It's got a mushroom on the cover. At this point in time, I probably smoked a little weed, but was not very, familiar with psychedelics. And I picked up this book called Breaking Open the Head by Daniel Pinchbeck. And it's a phenomenal book. If anyone's interested in plant medicines, I highly recommend checking this book out. It's still very relevant to this day. But so I get this book, man, and it's one of those weird fortuitous things where I take the book and I throw it on a shelf and I don't touch it for like 2 years. And I finally open it up, man. And Daniel Pinchbeck in this book, he talks about traveling the world, going to these different cultures. He goes down to Oaxaca, where we went, and takes the mushrooms. He goes to Africa and does the Iboga. He travels to all these different cultures. And hearing his testimony about Ibogaine, it planted this seed in my head. So at the time, I was just beginning this journey of trying to numb myself from a whole lot of childhood trauma and experiences, right? And in trying to numb myself, I was walking this path. I didn't realize it was extremely self-destructive, and eventually led me to a place where I was a heroin addict. So when I became a heroin addict, I remembered, actually, sorry, I should have said 2 years later, I picked up the book, read the book, right? So when I became a heroin addict, this seed was planted. I was like, oh, there's this guy, Daniel Pinchbeck. And he said, there's this plant from West Africa. And what he described was he went down to try this plant. And when he went to try it, he was a like 2 pack a day smoker. And he went through the Iboga initiation. And after, maybe a day or two, he was like, oh, weird. I haven't craved a cigarette since doing the Iboga experience. And, a lot of people are familiar with its anti-addictive properties, but that for me was really like the seed that got planted. So fast forward years later, I'm in college. I was a competitive skier, an athlete, and I had a series of injuries where the solution for those injuries was opioids. So, like many other people, I was getting pain pills, fed to me by my doctor. And it spun out of control really fast, man. When I was 18 years old, I was in the Marine Corps delayed entry program. I went through that for a year. And then like a month before I was supposed to ship out to boot camp, I got in this crazy car accident where I rolled my Jeep into Clear Creek Canyon, which is this canyon in Golden, Colorado. And it completely ended my hopes and dreams. I grew up in a military family. So really my only plan in life was to go to the military. And it kind of ended all of that abruptly. And then also added the addition of now I have this injury to my occipital lobe. And so I'm being prescribed a bunch of medication, including pain pills. And man, it got out of hand super fast. I went to college and I just so happened to meet some girl who offered me heroin, and it went downhill super quickly, man. So I honestly, I spent, a period of time as a heroin addict. Before that, I was addicted to pills. And finally, dude, I was in this place where at the time I was essentially getting an unlimited resource of heroin. I was the only one with a car. So I was traveling to Denver, picking up for a bunch of people, and people would just give it to me. So I was getting this insane amount of heroin. I, started using needles. It just spiraled out of control, dude. And all of a sudden I'm sitting there and I'm withdrawing for the first time. And I'm like, oh crap. Like, dude, I got to do something about this. So I start looking for solutions. When I look for solutions, dude, I noticed, holy crap, there's no solutions around, right? There's methadone, there's Suboxone, there's quitting cold turkey, but it just didn't seem like an option. And then all of a sudden I remember this seed that had been planted, this Iboga. And that was kind of the beginning of this journey. Now this is, almost just shy of 11 years ago now. So this is the beginning of this massive journey of like excavating and self-exploration. It all started there with my heroin addiction.
Were you addicted to heroin for how many years would you say?
Yeah. So, I mean, what's crazy, man, is I was addicted to pills a lot longer than I was addicted to heroin. So I was only addicted to heroin for a pretty brief period of time. I was addicted to heroin and granted, when I say, so I was addicted to heroin for 3 months, right? Which is crazy. Most people are like, oh, fuck, that's nothing, dude. But here's what's crazy is I dove off the deep end fast. I was shooting up within like a week of having done heroin. So it was like, dude, when I went to Ibogaine treatment, I weighed 114 pounds. Like I was just a shell of myself. I was addicted to pain pills for a long time though. I had kind of a crazy series of events early on. When I was about 12 years old, I ended up getting a man, I had this interesting experience. I grew up in a military family, and there was a lot of experiences with my mother after she came home. She got injured in Iraq in 2003, and she had really bad PTSD. So there were a lot of these experiences where, yeah, she had PTSD, and I was on the receiving end of that. And so it built up a layer of trauma. And then when I was about 12 years old, and this is kind of probably a whole other side tangent that we don't have to go down, but when I was 12 years old, I was uh, essentially kidnapped, and this whole thing sparked this like uh, deep series of like cascading events that led me to start using pain pills, man. My mom was injured in Iraq, so she was prescribed a bunch of opioids. So I would just start stealing them from her. So for about 7 years, I was addicted to pain pills, and I actually got off of them long enough to do the delayed entry program, try go to the Marine Corps, do all of that stuff. So there was this brief period of time, and I think that's why the heroin was so easy to like, pick up and take off with.
Yeah.
So that's the synopsis of my addiction, my relationship with opioids.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, you see it all the time in Massachusetts too. And I mean, not just, I mean, it's pretty much rampant throughout the U.S. that a lot of people,
Absolutely.
yeah, first get introduced to the pain pills, and that when they can't find the pain pills, heroin
Absolutely.
is available, and it's much cheaper.
The actual slippery slope.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting, man, because so when I was growing up, my sister had gotten in trouble. She had gotten in trouble when I was like maybe 11 years old for stealing my mom's Percocets. And I used to have people all the time. They'd be like, "Hey, man, I heard your mom has Percocets. Your sister told us." And it was so funny, man, because being the dumb kid I would like go look through her pills, and I didn't know that oxycodone was Percocet. So I'm like, "Nah, she doesn't have any of that stuff. I can't find it anywhere."
Yeah.
And then once I finally learned how to use Google and figure out what it was,
Yep.
it was like something clicked. And it's crazy because like now they've got all these restrictions. The one sad thing is, we tend to do this pendulum swing, do these knee-jerk reactions where we're like, "Oh, you're addicted? Oh, gotta cut that out, dude. We're cutting you off." Right. And I think that contributes to a lot of the problems also. But it's funny because my mother was being prescribed so many opioids that I was able to steal like 30 to 60 pills a month without even, without her noticing.
Jeez.
Right.
Especially if they're coming from the VA, they're just like, the VA's like,
Dude.
here you go, here you go, here you go.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
man. Yeah, absolutely. And anyone who's ever had to deal with the VA knows, like, dude, you're such an inconvenience to them that they're just like, "All right, take this, get the fuck out of here." Now, what's sad is they just treat veterans like addicts, right? Which is, it's another really fascinating thing about Ibogaine is that's the one community I think benefits the most from this plant medicine. It's the veteran community, man. It's the people who, not only do they have, complex PTSD from their combat experiences, but they also have like there's this framework, there's this difficulty adapting back to society after your entire life is regimented, right? It's like coming home. It's very challenging to fall into just regular civilian life, and these are things that Ibogaine is extremely helpful for. So it's funny how that's the case. It's very helpful for veterans, and I'm not a veteran myself, but my parents are both combat veterans, and it's interesting how it skipped them, went to me. Which, if you know anything about epigenetics, there's actually these really fascinating studies about the children of combat veterans, and how if you actually look at the gray matter in their brain, it matches combat veterans. So it very much is passed down to you. There's certain things that are passed down to you, certain genes that are active or not active because of that. There's a wonderful book. It's called "It Didn't Start With You." It's really good. It kind of covers the topic. But so it's interesting how it skipped that, right? And healing is one of those things. It's got ripple effects, right? So as we heal, I've also seen my parents begin to heal as well. It's really fascinating, man.
So Chaps was shot in Iraq as well. What year was that?
2007.
2007.
Oh, man.
And were you prescribed a bunch of pain pills after that?
No, actually, and because my dad was in the Navy and I saw him like go through battling pills and stuff, it was sleeping pills for him after coming back from like ships and shit. And so I was always very cognizant of like the types of medication that I would take. So like after I got shot, I denied morphine. Like I didn't take any painkillers that weren't ibuprofen.
Oh, wow.
Wow, man.
Like
Dude, good for you. What a gangster. Like, yeah, dude, look at that.
Yeah, because I do have a propensity for a little bit of addiction as well.
Yes.
I did hit the bottle way too much for sure whenever I came back, so that was probably my vice of choice was the bottle. But weed helped me a lot with that, like the amount of
Definitely.
so I got diagnosed bipolar as well. So I have PTSD and bipolar, and going through that and having marijuana got me off different types of medication. So now I just do lamotrigine and marijuana.
Yeah, and you hadn't smoked marijuana before the military, right? Yeah,
No.
that was
Oh, wow, man.
afterwards.
So now that's how I sleep. Like I use marijuana to sleep and podcast, and and lamotrigine to make myself not feel like I want to kill myself. So that's pretty sweet.
Nice, dude. Good, man. Good. Well,
Yeah.
man, what first of all, I guess I want to say thank you for your service. I know, I don't know, growing up in a military family, it's so funny. People used to thank my parents for their service, and my parents were always a little weird about it. They're like, yeah, whatever, dude.
I mean, it does make you feel a little uncomfortable from time to time, but I would much rather be in the position where society has to find a new way to say thanks for your service, as opposed to what people like that went to Vietnam had to deal with when they came.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Like
absolutely.
that pendulum swing in 25, 30 years is pretty nuts.
Yes, it definitely is.
Absolutely, man. So, Chaps, what's your experience with PTSD been like? Is that something, because you had mentioned with your father, you're seeing what he went through. You had the awareness to kind of avoid these potential pitfalls. And I think honestly, man, if you could sum up psychedelics, right, which cannabis, like, let's be honest, cannabis is a psychedelic. It's a much more mild psychedelic, but it is still very psychedelic. One of my favorite quotes is from Bob Marley. He said, "The herb reveals you to yourself." Right. And that's one of those things. It's so funny. You hear people are like, man, I smoked weed and I freaked out. I had this boss back in the day, and it was so funny, man. One time I was smoking cannabis before work, and he goes, man, I don't know how you do that stuff. He goes, last time I smoked cannabis, I looked at my life and I hated my wife and I wanted to get a divorce, and he's like listing all this stuff. I'm like, damn, dude, I think that might be trying to tell you something.
Yeah.
So it's funny, man. The psychedelics really, I think the fundamental understanding that people need to have for psychedelics is really what it's doing is it's increasing our awareness, right? Like you were talking about having that awareness about your father and not falling in, maybe falling into the same pitfalls, right? So with that said, what's your experience with your PTSD? What's your relationship with that been like?
I would say that it's been vastly improved. There's a doctor named Dr. Willis that I dealt with in San Antonio. She was a neuropsychologist, and I credit her really for changing my life. Like the way that I looked at everything, the way that I kind of, not a victim mindset, but like almost like I was owed a certain amount because of what had happened to me. And talking to her and realizing like, hey, there's a phrase that I used when I did Zero Block 30 that I use all the time, and it's blooming where you're planted. And I, for a long time, was kind of bitter about everything. It changed my relationship with religion. Like everything in my life, my entire worldview changed in Fallujah. And it took a while to wrap around why that was happening, the way that I looked at people, the way I looked at people that were from the Middle East. Everything changed. And I really credit her for kind of unlocking that. And then it took a lot of time. I would say probably I didn't really get a grip on like PTSD or side effects and like the way that I wanted to be, the man that I wanted to be, till I'd been out for probably 7-8 years. And I would say in the last 4 or 5 years is when I've really come into a zone and being more at peace with myself and who I am and what I did and who I'm going to be moving forward, and just the type of man that I want to be. I don't have to be like this aggressive dude that's like super intense all the time. I try to be very chill and even keel all the time. So I feel like that approach and just being calm and normal is my my goal.
Absolutely, man. It's interesting. How long were you in the military for, if you don't mind me asking?
Just about 10 years.
Okay. See, that makes a lot of sense, right? They say that you see, this is interesting. The reason I bring this up is because neuroplasticity is a huge subject of discussion when it comes to psychedelics, right? So it's interesting because generally speaking, time is, like as far as the equation goes, time is a very important aspect, right? Like time heals all wounds. And so it's funny because, so like a breakup, they say that it takes half the amount of time you were in a relationship to heal from the relationship. Add on that the compounding, specifics of like the traumatic events or whatever. And in a lot of ways, you were in a relationship with the military. You were in a relationship with Uncle Sam, right? Mm-hmm. And having to heal from that relationship, it took a large period of time. So what's fascinating and kind of the caveat into psychedelics here is what's fascinating is psychedelics have this habit of increasing neuroplasticity to a point to where we're able to bypass some of that time that it takes, or at least accelerate the amount of time that it takes. And when you're in this position where time is of the essence, where you don't necessarily, maybe you're standing on the edge, right? You're having a lot of suicidal ideation, you're struggling with substance abuse. This can very often be the thing that doesn't necessarily cure, but interrupts that. The one thing about Ibogaine, when I took Ibogaine, people called it a cure. Like it was very common. You'd be like, oh, this cures addiction. And now we've changed the language up. So it's like, it's not a cure, it's an interruption, right? Because a cure kind of implies that addiction is, a cure actually falls into the kind of flawed disease model where we're playing whack-a-mole, just chasing symptoms, right? It doesn't address root causes. So it's not necessarily a cure, it's an interruption. And oftentimes when you're on this destructive path downward, right, an interruption is what you need, right? So environment that, Vietnam, and kind of on the subject of veterans, Vietnam's the best example of this. I had this boss one time. This guy was one of the coolest people I've ever met. And he was a Vietnam veteran and he was a radio operator. And he was a real cool guy. And I had asked him because he was a flying instructor. I was like, oh, you ever flown helicopters? My dad was a Black Hawk pilot. So it was kind of one of those, like, at the time it was, I was trying to find common ground with him or whatever. And he's like, no, I've only been on one helicopter in my life. I was like, oh, that's cool. When was that? And he goes, well, right before we pulled out of Vietnam, I had a friend who was a ranger and I was working in Saigon. And he said I had never gotten to do go out on a combat mission. And he said they had to go and pick up someone. And so he invited me on this mission. And he said they were in the helicopter for like 45 minutes. It got shot down and they ended up a POW in Vietnam. Right before he was supposed to leave, man. Like, craziest story ever. And I asked this guy because at the time I'd read this statistic that 72% of soldiers in Vietnam had used heroin. And dude, this guy looks at me and he goes, that's it? 72%? He's like, it's like, I think it was way more than that. But it's funny because the State Department was freaking out, dude. They're like, oh shit, we got a bunch of people who are heroin addicts and we're about to bring them all home. We're going to have crime. We're going to have, mayhem in the streets. And the truth is actually that the majority of them didn't continue their drug use when they came home because they're no longer in an environment where that's like necessary, right? When you're in combat, you're like, fuck, dude, I'm going to die. I may as well ease the pain of what I'm experiencing, right? Regulate the nervous system with whatever I can.
For me, it wasn't heroin. It was beating off in a porta potty. That's what got me going.
Yeah. That's a sauna sesh right there, man. That's funny, dude. So, it's interesting, man. I think that
I used to beat off porta potties too, but I have no excuse.
No, you don't need one.
He wasn't even working there, man. He's just showing up. Yeah. That's funny, dude.
Can you briefly explain the term neuroplasticity? Because I think we're going to be talking about it a lot.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So neuroplasticity is essentially your brain's ability to regenerate, heal, and create new pathways, right? Yeah. So like a massive problem that we have, and again, a lot of this is tied into the flawed disease model. The flawed disease model is the one that the pharmaceutical industry pumps out, and it says, okay, this is your symptom. We're going to treat the symptom and we're never going to address the root cause. But the problem is when you make these massive changes to someone's brain chemistry, it's kind of like over time it's this compounding thing. So when you make these, like the crazy thing about opioids is when you first start taking opioids, you're like, holy shit, this is the solution, dude. Like I fixed all my problems. This is great, dude. When I started doing heroin, I was second in my class in school. I had 2 jobs. I was absolutely killing it. I thought I was on top of the world. And then it's slowly over time, dude, it's this compounding effect where next thing you know, you lose 60 pounds and you're like, I'm not going to go to class this week. I'm going to, get fired from my job, all this. It's funny, man. My addiction experience actually ended with the DEA raiding my house. And so I woke up, dude. I finally, I'll take it back to the Ibogaine experience that I had. So I'm a heroin addict, right? And at this point in time, I've got maybe $2,000 to my name. I'm looking around on the internet. I'm like, okay, I know what this thing is called. It's called Iboga. And I start looking, I'm like, okay, so Iboga, it comes from the root bark of the Tabernathi Iboga tree from Gabon, right? But the alkaloid that people are using that has the highest potential for reversing or interrupting addiction is called Ibogaine, right? It's one of about 100 alkaloids. They all have an impact and effect. You can synthesize Ibogaine from other alkaloids, but Ibogaine is the main alkaloid that we discuss when we talk about addiction. So I look into it, I find, okay, there's Ibogaine, right? And they have Ibogaine in Mexico. It's not legal in the United States. Go figure. The pharmaceutical industry doesn't, they don't want something that can take their profit share of the MAT, methadone, Suboxone, things like that. But so I go and I start researching and I find this clinic. It's a very reputable clinic. It's called Crossroads. And Crossroads is actually run by Dr. Martin Polanco, who's kind of the foremost expert on Ibogaine use for post-traumatic stress disorder, and specifically working with veterans. He's a very just an incredible dude, really, really interesting guy. So I start researching it, man, and I reach out to his clinic and I get a message back from an intake coordinator named Tyson Elliott. Unfortunately, Tyson passed away a handful of years ago. He was an incredible dude. And honestly, I owe a lot of gratitude to Tyson. So thank you, Tyson. I appreciate you, man. But Tyson reaches out to me and we get to talking and he's like, what are you going to do, man? Like, what's your plan? And I'm like, honestly, dude, I think I'm going to go get on Suboxone. Like, I can't afford $8,000 right now. This is outrageous. Like, it was $8,000 for an 8-day treatment. Right. And I told him, I'm like, I can't afford this, man, but I know I need it. And we get to talking and he goes, like, could you ask your parents for the money? And I'm like, dude, my parents don't even know I'm a heroin addict. Like, how do I break that one to them? So being the like analytical person I am, dude, I made a slideshow and I made a slideshow of things that cost $8,000, dude. It's like, you could go on a vacation to, Paris, you could buy a new car, and then at the end, it's like, you could also give me a second chance at life because I'm a heroin addict and I'm really sorry. And it's funny, man. My dad came up to see me at school. He just randomly, he's like, hey, man, I want to take you out to lunch. I want to talk to you. And he comes out there and we get together and he's like, bro, what's going on? Like, there's something up. You're skinny as fuck. Like, you're falling asleep in your food. And I told him I was a heroin addict. And man, dude, the heartbreak, I could see that he was hurt by that. Of course, man. Like, his only son is a heroin addict, someone he's invested so much into. And I told my dad, I said, Dad, I talked to this clinic. All right. I want you to do me a favor. I'll whatever you think is the best choice. That's what I'll do. If you want me to go to rehab, right? If you want me to do the insurance route, that's fine. My sister had been to rehab 2 or 3 times. And so I think that at that point they were like, fucking rehab doesn't work. Are you kidding me? We're going to send him on vacation. He's going to come back with other addictions. So I told him, you know what, just talk to this doctor and then let me know what you think. And my dad talks to the doctor. He calls me an hour later and he goes, we're going to send you to Ibogaine because this is the only chance you have. And that was it, man. That was like, it was, man, it gives me chills just saying it, dude. I owe so much gratitude to my father. He's a very good man. And I think that, without his, it's funny with addiction, tough love tends to be the norm. It tends to be the thing you're told, like, oh, don't enable people. But the truth is with heroin addiction, man, tough love kills people, right? Heroin addiction, if we look at it at its essence, right, it's someone that is seeking connection, right? It's kind of like all this stuff, dude. You can really see it. It's very literal. It's like, what is an angry person? An angry person is someone who is cold. And so they're creating friction to try and synthesize connection, warmth, right? A heroin addict, when you do heroin, you feel all warm and fuzzy inside. You're literally cold and disconnected. And so when you're cold and disconnected and someone comes to you and goes, you're a piece of shit, all it does is further perpetuate that. And don't get me wrong, at some point, like maybe something gives and someone feels so ashamed that they change. But for most people, it just doesn't work like that. And that's why we have so many people that end up dying, especially nowadays in the days of fentanyl. But I
want to chime in there too. I
Yeah.
think you're absolutely right. And I think credit to your dad, because so many from that level of military involvement, your go-to response is increase your discipline. Like you are dealing with heroin, you're dealing with these issues because you're not being disciplined. And I think that so many people in the veteran space get in their head about that. Like same thing with PTSD, no matter what mental issues that you're going through, it comes to a place of I'm not being disciplined. And you see it in the poison of people like David Goggins and those that are like, just go out and go to the gym. And if you're feeling depressed, go run. Like, and to me, that mindset is incredibly dangerous. And it's one of the reasons why people continue to struggle, because you're not stronger than your internal demons. You do need help. And maybe it's maybe not through the lens of psychedelics or something like that, but it is through the lens of therapy, and it's not just through beating your feet on fucking pavement like those morons say.
Yeah, dude, absolutely, man. You hit the nail on the head. It's funny. Yeah, dude.
Shots fired at Goggins.
Yeah, dude. Goggins, go.
Stop being a deadbeat dad, David.
Yeah, I was gonna say go hang out with your daughter, Goggins. Probably have to pull that one out.
No, keep it. Fuck 'em.
Keep it. Yeah. Oh man. So it's funny, man. I 100% agree, and I think that, dude, when it comes down to it, like you said, dude, this is such a bullshit kind of bro influencer hyper masculine response. And again, it's this pendulum, right? It's the pendulum's constantly swinging. If someone feels insecure and inferior, then the pendulum swings to hyper masculinity, right? It's just the nature of psychology. Everything is kind of protective in nature. And so it's interesting, man. I think that when it comes down to it, the like looking in the mirror at yourself and going, I fucking hate you, to try and change, it's just like at face value, it doesn't fucking work, dude. Like at some point you have to love the person in the mirror enough to change. At some point you have to look at yourself and go, no, I want you to live. I want you to be happy. I want you to be healthy. And that's why I'm going to change, instead of this Hemingway code hero, like suffer all day, drink yourself to sleep at night kind of fucking, tough guy persona. Like
and that's why I think the phrase bloomer your planet is so perfect, because when you do things like the David Goggins way and you try to, eventually that negative stimulus is going to come back. You're going to have adversity that looks you in the face again. How do you reply? How do you respond to that adversity? Are you going to continue to just take the punches in the face and keep rolling with it? Or are you going to find a different method and ways to cope in order to be a better person and more rounded person, instead of just being a fucking UFC fighter to your own brain? Idiots.
Yeah, dude. Absolutely, man.
Those guys.
And I think, like Jungian psychology, Jung believed that anything like the shadow, right? Anything that you suppress and push down, bro, it's just going to start coming out of the cracks, right? So it's going to come out in other places. So if all you ever do is cope with your feelings by, I don't know, consuming, or like, even, bro, the gym is such a funny thing because, dude, so many people, they're like, all I do is work out. I'm like, bro, like that's in itself, you're still not feeling your feelings. You're still escaping from something, and albeit a much more productive way than doing heroin. But it's still, at the end of the day, anything that we suppress is going to start coming up in different places throughout our experience as human beings.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So your dad agrees to pay for it, and then you fly down to Mexico?
Yeah. Okay. So get this. This is where it gets wild, man. So dad agrees to pay for it, right? I get a trip to Mexico 2 weeks later, right? So the morning of my trip to Mexico, I wake up at like 6 a.m. I'm in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. I'm at Colorado Mountain College. I live in this house, pretty like downtown in Steamboat, beautiful spot. And I wake up and I'm like, you know what? I'm feeling a little sick. I should probably do a little bit of heroin. That seems to be the most logical way to go about this. So I do a little bit of heroin and then I fall asleep and I wake up and in my haze, I can hear this like this
Yeah.
pounding. And I'm like, what the fuck, dude? So I get up and something in my head told me it was my friend Dylan playing a joke on me because now I can hear the banging and the police open up going door to door in the house. And I'm like, oh, it's my buddy Dylan. So I run out in the hallway butt ass naked and I go, Dylan, get the fuck out of my house. And it's not Dylan. It is a SWAT team who has come to raid my house. And in my junkie brain, my logical mind goes, oh, I should go back in my room and lock the door. That's a good idea. So I run in the door or I run in the room, I lock the door. I'm in there for about 2 seconds. They start banging on the door. I'm like, shit, dude. So I open the door and they pull me out. They take me downstairs. At that point, they let me throw a coat over my lap. I'm sitting there on the couch with all of my roommates and they're all looking at me like none of them were heroin addicts. They didn't even know I was a heroin addict. They knew I was fucking weird. I was hiding in my room most of the time, but they didn't know how bad it was. And
This
they,
skinny guy with his dick out.
yeah, exactly. It's funny too. It was a party house, and we would throw these massive parties, and I just didn't go to any of the parties. I had the master bedroom, and I would just hide away in a master bedroom with this girl who I would do heroin with, and we would just kick it in the room for like that's it. That's all we did, man. And they bring us downstairs. They set us all on the couch. And then this guy pulls me aside and he, tries to pull the Batman on me. He's like, "Where are the drugs? We know you have them." And I'm like, honestly, you don't understand. Like, there's no dealer here. They're like, "We want you to flip on your dealer." I'm like, "There's no dealer, dude. Like, we're just addicts. It's like a co-op. We all throw our money together. We go to Denver. We pick it up. We come home. We do our heroin. That's it. There's no dealer here. I'm just an addict. I have a gram of heroin in my refrigerator, like all this stuff, right? So they arrest me. They throw me in jail. They leave me there for 3 days. As I'm like withdrawing, they come in incrementally and like stick their head through the little tray thing, and they're like, "You gonna tell us where you get the drugs?" And I just be like, "No, fuck you." Like, not happening, dude. And it was funny, man. I did try pull a joke on the DEA, which I'm pretty proud of. It's a cool little one. I had a contact in my phone for this chick who worked at the pizza joint in town that said Brooklyn's on it. And so the last thing I ever said to a DEA agent, he came in, he stuck his head in. This is after days of withdrawing. And he goes, "All right, last chance, man." And I said, "Yeah, grab my phone, text Brooklyn and tell her you want a large pizza. That's code for heroin. And then go to Brooklyn's Pizza and pick it up." I never heard from them again. So
Okay.
I don't know how that worked out. I hope I got some lunch for those guys, for all their hard work. But so yeah, at that point, I go to jail. Ironically, the kid who I was buying the heroin from, his dad was the judge who arraigned me.
What the
So yeah, dude. The crazy thing is, Steamboat Springs is called Ski Town, USA. Dude, it should be called Heroin Town, USA, or it should have. I don't know. I don't know what the state is now, but I knew so many people. I took this class, this psychology course in school, and they told us that 1 in 10 people is addicted to, some substance. And I remember taking that class, looking around in a classroom of about 30 people and looking around and going, holy crap, I know like 10 people in here who I've done heroin with. Like, there were just so many people all over town. And I learned really quickly too. I had a little bit of foresight. I saw that Steamboat is a town where 1% of the people own 100% of the wealth, right? And everyone else is just passing through. They're just workers. And I was like, man, this equation, they're just waiting for some sort of economic issue for this whole town to kind of, crash and burn. And during the pandemic, dude, that's exactly what happened. Most people are just using heroin because like that was their only way of coping with the fact that they're barely hanging on by a thread. And I mean, dude, so many people. But back to the judge's son, man, I'm getting arraigned, and this is so funny. I'm getting arraigned, and I go, "Your Honor, I just want to thank you. I have a friend named Connor, and Connor convinced me to get clean. I was supposed to be leaving this morning to go to treatment, and I hope that you'll take that into consideration." And the guy's face went ghost white. His son was Connor. Right? And he knew exactly what I was talking about because his son had gotten him. I mean, this kid had been caught with dope so many times, and every time they would just throw it out because his dad was the judge. And because of that, they it was a conflict of interest. So they had to assign me a new judge. So what normally would have taken like a small period of time, they gave me a PR bond because I had no criminal record. And then it ended up taking them 3 months to find me a new judge who could oversee the case because he was compromised because I had a relationship with his son where, obviously they didn't know he was they didn't know he was selling me drugs, but I got out of there and my lawyer, he came into the jail and he goes, man, you're a genius. Like they're going to let you go because they can't keep you here for 3 months. And the other judge who comes to the district, she's not here for another 3 months. So like, congratulations, man, they're going to let you out. And they let me out, man. And that was it. I was gone, went to Mexico.
Okay. So where in Mexico? Is this near the US border?
Yeah, man. So the majority of the Ibogaine clinics in Mexico are pretty close to the US border. And we'll kind of touch on that a little bit more after I tell you about my experience in Mexico. So I went down to a clinic called Crossroads. And Crossroads to this day is still one of the most successful Ibogaine clinics. It was run by Dr. Martin Polanco. Dr. Polanco's, he's a good guy. I ran into him at Psychedelic Science this year. So shout out Dr. Polanco, you're the man. But so I go down, basically I get there, they give me morphine to help me counter the withdrawal. So they're giving me like maybe 300 milligrams of morphine every 4 hours. I'm using that to counter the fact that I'm obviously in withdrawal. I get there, they have a therapist on staff. We talk with her. You're there for 8 days. You're there for 10 days, but you're 8 days in, you do your Ibogaine treatment. So the way they do that is they give you a test dose, right? The test dose is a very small amount of Ibogaine. That's just to make sure you don't react to it poorly. And then they give you your flood dose. So they hook you up to IVs.
Should we first mention that like Ibogaine, unlike shrooms, where if you do a lot of shrooms, it's not going to cause any physical harm to your body unless you have like a mental breakdown and chop off your own balls or something like that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
with Ibogaine, it does have a physical effect in your body. So if you have any sort of heart problem, it can cause cardiac arrest, right? So,
Absolutely. Yeah,
so
man.
Did they first just do some tests just to make sure that your heart seemed to be in good shape?
Yeah. So we'll mention that, I was going to go into that a little bit later, but I will say, I'll kind of give a brief overview on it. With Ibogaine, what they do is they get EKG and blood work. And what they want to make sure is that you don't have abnormal T-wave intervals. Abnormal T-wave intervals, Ibogaine specifically as an alkaloid, in high dosages, it has a propensity to cause cardiac events in people with abnormal T-wave intervals. What that means is if you test for that, it's very safe, right? However, if you test and someone has abnormal T-wave intervals, which is common in people who have been abusing substances for years, right? That can take a toll on your cardiovascular system. So if you test for it, you can almost entirely guarantee the safety of Ibogaine, right? However, if you don't, man, you're flipping a coin. It can be very dangerous, right? So they did start out, they did blood work, EKG. They picked me up in San Diego, actually drove me over the border, took me for the blood work and EKG, and then brought me to a house on Rosarito Beach. And beautiful beach house. I had kind of a little bungalow to myself. And then it's pretty structured. You have acupuncture, you have yoga, you have all these things you're doing. You're seeing a therapist throughout the week. And then on day 8, they take you back into Tijuana, where they have this kind of like hospital room in Tijuana. And they bring you in, and there were 6 people with me. We're all hooked up. We're all in beds. We're hooked up to IVs. You're getting IV fluids. They administer a test dose, and then they administer a flood dose, right? And I will say, because I want people to understand, Ibogaine is not necessarily an enjoyable experience. And my initial experience with Ibogaine doesn't reflect what most people's experience will be like. I just want to put that out there. I was given my test dose, then given my flood dose, right? And for me, the initial come up felt really good. I felt like I was on like MDMA or something, like just a lot of energy. I started having like visual hallucinations where I could see lightning bolts going across the ceiling. And I'm sitting there in this hospital bed, and all of a sudden the kid next to me starts freaking out. He starts screaming, and he takes his IV cord and starts wrapping it around his neck and trying to kill himself. Like, crazy intense experience, right? the people across from me, one is like completely out, just sleeping. One's like throwing up a bunch. Someone's crying. And this kid, like at this point, it's like a madhouse, dude. I'm like, oh my God, like, what did I get myself into? And I look over at this doctor, dude. And with Ibogaine, one of the ways that you can actually end an Ibogaine trip, like almost immediately, is by giving someone benzos, right? Or giving someone like Valium, something like that. So they go to give this kid Valium because he's trying to kill himself. He's freaking out. You know, they weren't really planning on restraining someone.
Yeah, you got to
And
discourage that.
yeah, definitely, dude.
Bad for the brand.
He pulls this, the doctor pulls out this 1,000 cc syringe, right? And it's 1,000 cc's of saline, right? So I see this Looney Tunes looking syringe that's like massive, dude. And I just look up at him, my eyes get so big. And the doctor looks at me and just bursts out laughing, dude. He just dies laughing. He's like, no, it's for the IV bag. I'm putting it in there so I can cut the Valium. I'm not.
That's way too much heroin.
Yeah,
That's way too much.
So they take that, dude. They give it to him, and he calms down, man. He quiets down. The doctor comes over. He's like, hey, man, like you can keep your eyes open the whole time, but it works best if you close your eyes. So one of the mechanisms, or one of the things that occurs during your Ibogaine experience, is it activates REM cycle, like dramatically, not just, you know, the small amount you get when you're sleeping. We're talking about a prolonged period of REM cycle. So it's like you're dreaming. So even when you're awake, it feels like you're in a dream state. And then when you close your eyes, you begin to go into this completely cathartic, like intense visual state. And granted, again, everyone's physiology is different. So some people go into the place where they, you know, same with mushrooms, they get like abstract memes and shit, you know, like just random stuff. And then some people are able to really navigate these internal spaces. So I closed my eyes and I began, the first experience I had was the experience of being a pig running through the jungle, being hunted. Like all I could hear was my heart beating and the like, and I just remember running as fast as I could through the jungle. And then my next experience was actually an experience of reliving one of the more traumatic experiences when I was a kid, when my mom got back from Iraq. So a little background, my mom was a medic and my mom worked in the prisons in Iraq. And so essentially what they would do is they would interrogate people. And then my mom's job was to patch them up so that they could be interrogated again at a later date. And being someone who went into the military for the sake of like helping people, right? Like it's one thing to be someone who's like trained and ready to go to combat. But I think being in a role where you're a caretaker and having to care for people who are being tortured is, you know, I think it really added up. It you know, was a lot for her psyche. So I relived this experience where I was a little kid. I was 10 years old. It was right after my mom had gotten released from the hospital. She was in at Walter Reed for like several months after she was medevaced out of Iraq. And when she finally got home, all she did was sleep. And one day I came home and I was excited to tell her about something. And she was on the couch, like asleep, covered in blankets. And I'm, mom, and trying to tell her something. And she goes, can you stop talking? And I just started talking more and more and more. And she was like, please stop talking. And I was like, I need you to listen. And I'm just yapping, dude, just trying to get her to pay attention to me. And finally she screams at me and tells me to go away. And I told her, I'm like, I want my mom back. And I start yelling. And my mom grabbed me and she put me in like a rear naked and started choking me out. And I blacked out. And as I came to it, my dad was screaming at her, what are you doing? What are you doing? And she's crying on the floor saying, I just wanted him to stop talking. And I had watched that experience from the perspective of a fly on the wall. And I watched not just from my own perspective of my own trauma, but the trauma that my mom faced in the military, the trauma that my mom faced, and not just the trauma, but, you know, like, dude, I have kids now, right? I've got 5 kids. I know what it feels like to be overwhelmed and overstimulated. Now we add on top of that, the fact that she just got, you know, brain damage from, you know, an IED and all of this, like these medical problems related to her service. It gave me an immense amount of empathy for it. And it was one of those things, dude, I didn't even realize I was still holding on to that shit. I didn't realize how much it was still impacting me. right? And I think that we kind of become nose blind to certain experiences and events that occur in life. You know, guys in the military, they'll tell themselves like, no, I'm good. I'm better for my trauma. And it's like, you know, I think that I think that don't get me wrong, trauma is informative, but the whole point of these psychedelics is to increase our awareness and hopefully be able to move past these in a healthy way. So it just gave me that perspective, man. I got to see and experience that event from a different perspective that allowed me to move past it, you know?
Wow. Yeah, that's actually what I was reading, what an Ibogaine trip is like, because I had nothing to compare it to. And that's what I read. It was like reliving parts of your life, like almost movie scenes, but you're very detached from it. You're kind of, you know, just a fly on the wall, as you described.
Yeah, man, absolutely. It's, you know, and it's interesting too, when I was saying earlier, you know, like I don't want people to think their experience is going to be exactly like mine. I didn't have a bad experience. Like there was no emotion involved in it. Like you said, it was very detached, man. I got to watch this experience, and honestly, dude, all I felt the whole time was love. Like that's it, man. Even in the come up, you know, I didn't feel very afraid. I didn't feel, you know, all I felt was a tremendous amount of love, right? Love for my mother, love for even for myself, dude. You know, it's so easy to beat ourselves up and to be like, oh, I'm an addict, or you know, I'm a loser or whatever. It's easy to just pile that on the plate, but I think that the real act of courage is like, you know, can you love yourself even though you've made mistakes, right?
Mm-hmm. Smitty's gonna love that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think so. Choose love.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you eventually, after you kind of relived that entire moment, then did you slowly start coming back to reality, or did it last for much longer?
Yeah, so it's weird. Time becomes kind of warped, right? So that experience lasted somewhere in the ballpark of like 18 hours, right? I come out of it and you have really bad ataxia when you come out of it. So your feet are, I feel like they're like on the ceiling. You ever taken salvia?
I tried to once. I don't think I inhaled enough. I didn't feel much. But
I've only done it a few times, but each time I did it, it felt like my feet were on the ceiling. I was like, man, I'm not going anywhere. I'm planted. So it's kind of like that with Ibogaine. You're not walking anywhere. When I had my eyes open, all I could see across the sky was electricity, just electricity. I did at one point, I had to go to the bathroom in the middle of the experience. I woke up to go to the bathroom. It's so funny. I had this like dream that I threw up everywhere and like pissed myself. And I like woke up and I'm like, oh man, I can't believe I did that. And I looked down, I'm like, oh, I didn't. Okay, I guess I gotta go to the bathroom.
I've had those dreams before.
Yeah, I gotta.
And sometimes I actually have pissed myself. But
yeah,
yeah, it happens, man. It happens. So I walk out onto the patio and I look out at Tijuana, and it's just chaos, dude. It's crazy. What a crazy city, man. And I see just energy like lightning across the sky, man. It was one of the most intense things I've ever seen. I walked back to the bed, I laid down, but that was kind of like during the trip. That was the only really like, I don't know, part where I was awake and really lucid in the middle of it. But at the end of it, man, I come out of it and I'm like wide awake, dude. I'm ready to go. I'm like, cool. All right. Can I go now? And everyone around me is asleep. Like they're completely out of it, dude. They slept probably another 12 hours. And I'm just sitting there, man. And the staff is all Mexican and they don't speak any English, bro. Like they don't speak a lick of English. So I'm trying to like communicate to them. I'm like, can I get a telephone? Like, can I get something? And they're just like, no, dude, no. And then this one woman, she gave me a book that to this day is one of the most incredible books I've ever read. It's called The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. And I read this book while I was waiting there for those 12 hours. And it's still, if anyone wants a book to change their life, like I swear that's the book. It's absolutely incredible. So I read the book, man, after, you know, another 12 hours or so. So, you know, I think all in all, it's probably around 36 hours is how long they leave you at this clinic. And then they take me to the house, right? And the next day is what's called the gray day. So with Ibogaine, because your brain just did this massive reset and you just got flooded with so much serotonin and your brain chemicals are just, you know, you're tapped. Like you just went through something crazy. So what often happens is you come out of it the next day, dude, and you're like, fuck, it didn't work, dude. I'm miserable. This shit sucks, man. And they're like, no, hold on, like wait till tomorrow. And you wake up the next day and you're like, oh my God, it's like I feel like I just opened my eyes for the first time. Everything looks more vivid. Your body temperature isn't, as a heroin addict, you're so used to the hot and cold, hot and cold. And so everything balances out and you just feel at peace for the first time in, since whenever you started your journey with substance abuse.
Wow. And have you managed to not use heroin since that?
Yeah, man.
Experience?
Yeah, I'll have 11 years in December, on the 2nd of December. So
That's crazy.
Wow.
yeah, dude. I mean,
Congrats.
yeah, thanks, man. It's been a journey, dude. It's crazy. Yeah, just, that's all I can really say about it. It's crazy. And, I think that, granted, I don't think it's for everyone, right? I think that we tend to try and we deal in absolutes, right? Come on, we've all seen Star Wars. Only the Sith deal in absolutes. What's up, man?
Yeah.
So we tend to do that, man. But I think realistically, there's a certain criteria of people who it really works for, right? I also think that there's an element of, if you've suffered enough, that this is why I think veterans and even athletes are really good with Ibogaine. Like Ibogaine is a really popular plant medicine for athletes right now, like CTE. You got football players doing it, MMA players, or players, MMA fighters, all sorts of athletes are using it, right? Because it's really good for the brain and helps you heal and create that neuroplasticity. But I think that one of the reasons it's so powerful and transformative for veterans is because it takes kind of a certain level of like you have to have faced some trials and tribulations, or it will just eat you alive, man. It's kind of like, you ever seen Indiana Jones? What is it called? The Ark of the Covenant, when they open it and all the Nazis like melt. That's kind of what Ibogaine is. It's the Ark of the Covenant. And if you're not, it should, bro. Okay. And if you're not ready, bro, it's going to make you melt. Like, dude, the kid who tried to kill himself, bro, that kid he was extremely wealthy. He was like, he had been to probably a dozen rehabs, and he was only at the time, I think, like maybe 19. And he had spent the last 4 years, his parents just sent him around the world to different rehabs. And he just didn't want to. Yeah.
Some rehabs look like they're a great time.
Yeah.
All of them do. Yeah. That's how they sell it, man. I've seen a bunch
of shows with Nicole Kidman doing stuff like that in Hawaii.
Yeah, dude. That Nine Perfect Strangers. You seen that?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
It's interesting, man, how that's also becoming kind of the norm. You get these rich dudes who they have their life changed by plant medicine. They're like, let's start a business, dude.
Yeah.
Let's charge people an arm and a leg. They can come here and have a cathartic experience too.
But so for sure, it feels like a drug, not like shrooms, where if you don't have any big problems in your life, but you still want to experiment with shrooms and just like have a fun trip, you should go do it. If you aren't struggling with addiction or have serious trauma, you wouldn't recommend just going to try Ibogaine for the sake of
recreational
Ibogaine.
Yeah, but I do want to, and this is a great caveat, because I do want to explain a couple of things. One is, this is Ibogaine very specifically. Iboga is a completely different, it's a different ballgame, right? It's like the equivalent of like Mexican weed compared to like giving someone dabs or something, right? It's like, that's what I would compare Iboga and Ibogaine to. So like, yeah, you smoke a joint in Mexico, right? It's like, what, 10% THC? Like, you're having a good time, maybe get a little munchies. You give someone, give them some shatter or something, they're gone, dude. They're, in the fetal position, rocking back and forth. So, I think that it's important to make that
Chaps said that to us one time at a concert. You were passing around a joint that was like covered in keef. It was like 70% or
yeah, it was crazy.
Okay, yeah.
That's so funny, dude.
Some of us thought we were having a heart attack, but
some people had to leave the concert early.
It was fine.
Yeah.
That'll happen, man.
Yeah.
Now, you were telling me, I don't know if this was someone you knew or just a story you heard, because some people will actually travel to West Africa, where the drug was first found. It's kind of like Cameroon, Gabon.
It's
where does it come from?
Congo.
What is it? I don't even know what it is.
It comes from a bark. Similar to what?
Cinnamon.
Yes. Boom.
So it's a little bit different from cinnamon. I would say it's a little bit more similar, like a turmeric, right?
Oh, okay.
But it's interesting. So Ibogaine comes from Gabon, Africa, right? And initially, so it was it's been used for thousands of years. The current group that uses it in Gabon is called the Bwiti tribe, right? And the Bwiti tribe for the last, there's a specific tradition that's been going on for like the last 110 years, something like that. And that is the current iteration of this Bwiti tradition, but it dates back thousands of years. The Bwiti have also been called the Pygmy tribe of Gabon, but apparently that's like calling them the midget tribe of Gabon. They don't really like that terminology, so don't call them Pygmies. Learned that one the hard way.
One cool fact about Ibogaine is that if you go to South America, there's hundreds or maybe thousands of psychoactive plants, but Ibogaine, I think, is the only psychoactive plant in all of Africa. That's
absolutely, man.
Wait,
Yeah,
thought
with
there
the
was
exception.
elephant poop one that old Jarrett talked about.
Well, that's fungi,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
not a plant,
That's a
technically.
fungus.
Oh,
And I think the elephant poop shrooms that he did were in Thailand.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
But there are still strains of mushroom that are found in Africa. But what's fascinating is, ibogaine is the only psychoactive plant that is found in Africa. There are a variety of plants that are found to be containing iboga, though. It's not just Iboga tabernathi. And it's maybe the way to put it is there's tons of plants that contain the alkaloids that can be synthesized into or turned into iboga or ibogaine. Sorry. So it's, yes and no, right? It is the only psychoactive plant that's been used ritually in Africa. It is extremely profound and potent plant, but here's where it gets really interesting. So it's discovered by the French in the late 1800s, right? And they send it back to France and they kind of shelf it. Like they look into it, but at the time we just didn't have the science to really understand it. Then in 1901, ibogaine is synthesized for the first time by a French guy, right? And you know what this dude does? He goes, bro, this is great. This is an antidepressant and a stimulant.
Yeah.
So in France from 1935 until 1965, there was this drug. I think it's called
I actually wrote it down because I was
Labarine, something like that.
Yeah, it was called Labarene.
Yeah. So
Lambarini or whatever.
It
was a fatigue fighting tonic.
Yeah.
Red Bull.
Dude,
Yes.
absolutely incredible, man. And so here's what's wild is, so that was the initial understanding of like what ibogaine was. People were like, oh, okay, this is like, it's got these stimulating properties, which if you take an ibogaine as very true, it definitely, like I said, it on the come up, it felt like MDMA. But essentially, right, they have this drug. They don't know that it can help heal or cure addiction. Then in the 1960s, so there's a couple accounts. There's a guy in the 60s who went to Africa who was a heroin addict who got clean. And then there's also this gentleman in New York named Howard Lotsoff. And Howard he was a part of the Yippie movement, if I remember correctly. And he was a heroin addict living in New York City. And his friend knew he was interested in drugs and said, hey, we've got this compound, not really sure what it is, but it's psychedelic. And he gives it to him and he takes it and he goes on this walk in the park and he comes home and he goes, oh man, I'm not a heroin addict anymore. Like, I'm not in withdrawal. I'm not like, this is crazy. So then Howard goes on to essentially be the only, like he was leading the movement from the United States and then also went to Gabon and was essentially connecting. At one point, he connected with like the president of Gabon. I don't know if it's a president or prime minister. I think it's president. The president of Gabon, and was like, he ordered from Gabon like thousands of kilos of Iboga tabernathi that they were bringing back and using. At some point, Ibogaine was made illegal sometime in the 1970s. If you look into when Nixon was running, one of the guys he was running against, he accused him of using Ibogaine. Really interesting situation there, right? It's so funny because Ibogaine, again, it's not exactly like a fun thing to do. You're not like, oh, let's fucking pop some Ibogaine and go to the club, so very interesting, but it was a strange time for the war on drugs. And then in the 70s, this is when the tides turned. After Howard Lotsoff discovered about the anti-addictive properties, started introducing it to people, it was associated with like the hippies, right? Or the hippies, the yippies, like all of the counterculture movements. Those are the
yippies.
I believe that the Yippies are like
Chuck Knobloch.
it's like oh man, what was Kerouac? What was Kerouac?
Oh,
What was
he was the there was a name for Jack Kerouac. He was part of the
oh man, I wish I could remember this one.
What cultural movement was Kerouac? I should know that.
Oh, Beatnik.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the Yippies are somewhere between the Beatniks and the hippies. That's that's what I think. But
Yeah.
you know, it's
the beat,
that
the beat
could,
generation.
yeah, that I believe that's what it is. But granted, I'm not a cultural expert on the Yippies. So if anyone's out there like, oh,
Dude,
this
I gotta
guy,
learn about
That's
the
actually
Yippies.
part 2 of this
Yeah.
podcast.
Who were the Yippies? We're gonna get
yeah, exactly.
Drop a pin in the Yippies.
All right, you can keep going. If I find anything great about the Yippies,
anything pertinent about the Yippies. so Howard Lotsoff, he starts helping, inform the public about this miracle drug. At the time, they also didn't know that there was a cardiotoxicity related to Ibogaine. So they're just giving it to people and just like, wow, this is a miracle, right? Well, unfortunately, in the process of like trying to introduce this to people, trying to get funding, all of this, they had some deaths, right? They tried to get it descheduled. They tried to get it, approved by the FDA. They tried to get all of these things done. Howard Lotsoff actually filed the first patent for Ibogaine's anti-addictive properties in the 80s. So they tried to do all these things. And then when the deaths occurred, that's when they hit more and more red tape and regulatory issues, right? Even though they had helped thousands of people or hundreds of people at that time, maybe not thousands, they started to run into a lot of these problems. Something else that's really noteworthy, man, is that the International Olympic Committee put Ibogaine on the list of banned substances in the 70s because people were using it as a performance-enhancing drug. So really fascinating, which makes sense. It kind of lines up with the whole what is it? What'd you say? Labarene or Laberty?
Yeah, Lambarene.
Lambarene. Yeah. So it kind of lines up with that too, being an anti-fatigue drug. So that's the gist, right? That's like the brief oral history of Ibogaine as as it's come to exist today.
But very recently, it was legalized in Texas and Colorado.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So Texas very recently legalized it.
You still can't even like smoke weed in Texas, but now,
yeah, dude, isn't that crazy?
Their fucking lieutenant governor just had an absolute come apart about fucking Delta 8. Like he was your kids are gonna kill themselves if they get a hold of Delta 8. Like, what are you talking about, guy?
Crazy, man.
He was like, this is poison, and it was like cotton candy with Delta 8 in it.
Well, if a 3-year-old found cotton candy with Delta 8 in it, it would not be great.
I would rather.
It's still not gonna kill them.
Yeah, they'll wake up a few hours later. Baby Dale, my fucking 9-pound Chihuahua, ate half a pound of weed whenever I was trying to make some tincture myself. Threw it out in the backyard. That little bitch ate the whole thing. He didn't move for like 3.5 days, but he's fine. That was 5 years ago. I think a toddler will be okay with a little bit of cotton candy with some Delta 8. Take a nap, dude. Johnny.
Absolutely. I share that sentiment as well. I think Texas is such an interesting place, man. You've got all these people in Austin. We've got like the wellness crowd, the influencers, all that. And Texas is still, I don't know, dude, one of my least favorite states. Sorry, Texas.
You can't even buy alcohol in Texas on a Sunday before 11 a.m.
Yeah, dude.
You can't bet on if the Patriots are going to beat the Bengals because it'll cause the downfall of society.
But I'll tell you what, every rural town in Texas has a sex shop. So you get a butt plug at 2 a.m. You just can't buy a beer.
That's true. And if there's a time you need an emergency butt plug, it's 2 a.m.
But without the beer.
Yeah.
That's what I do. Yeah, man. No, so I mean, it's interesting. Colorado, we passed Prop 122 in 2022. And so it's called the Natural Medicine. I think it's the Natural Medicine Act, right? And what it did is it legalized psilocybin, mescaline, Ibogaine, and one other.
Ketamine?
No, ketamine was FDA approved because it's not a Schedule 1.
Okay.
I forget. No, I don't. Maybe it might be MDMA. I'm not 100% certain, but essentially what it did is it decriminalized it, and then it allowed for this framework for expansion into therapies, right? So like the initial setup was for psilocybin, right? They wanted to make it so you could go and get psilocybin assisted therapy, which actually, man, it's pretty crazy because they just did that pretty recently. They just opened the first psilocybin clinic. And bro, guess how much a single psilocybin therapy session is?
$2,000.
I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna guess 1,200.
I think it's probably is it like 8,000?
$3,500, dude.
3,500. Okay.
Nice.
That's insane, man.
Yeah, the
That's,
tariffs on that's got to be outrageous.
yeah, it's outrageous, dude. And it's, like this is one of the problems we run into with the regulatory oversight that, like it's the same with cannabis. Like cannabis industry in Colorado is pretty dead in the water. Like you can still buy weed here, but it's like the only people who can survive are these massive corporations, right? Smaller companies can't survive. Same thing happened in California right away. They made their permitting process so extensive that it just immediately pushed it all underground. So it's nice that it's decriminalized here. That's phenomenal. It gives people access and peace of mind. To be honest, dude, one of the only reasons that Colorado is my home base is because I don't have to worry about getting in trouble here. I don't have to worry about being raided. I don't have to worry about, having my children taken away from me. I saw this video the other day about this lady in Texas who she bought one of those mushroom grow kits, and they found out about it because one of her kids told her ex-husband. They raided her house, they threw her in jail, and they took her kids away from her and put them in foster care. And the mushrooms weren't even fucking grown yet, dude. They weren't even, it was just a mushroom grow kit with some pins popping up. Like they weren't even, fully fruited. That's insane, dude.
Yeah, because I was considering trying to grow my own shrooms, but I don't want to get my kid taken away.
Yeah, dude, absolutely, man.
Well, you gotta wait till he's at least a toddler to make that determination.
Yeah, exactly. Does it decide if you want to keep him?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
It's a good way to get out of it.
So it's legal, or I should stop saying legal. It's decriminalized in Colorado to the point where you can give dude, I actually had this amazing experience the other day. I'll eat mushrooms and I'll go sit in the sauna, right? That's kind of my decompression. Like late at night, I'll usually spend 2 to 4 hours a night in the sauna, right? I can't go, having 5 kids, you can't go first thing in the morning anymore. So I couldn't be that ambitious if I wanted to, but I'll go in the evening. And the other day, a couple weeks ago now,
like 2 to 4 hours.
Oh, bro. Yeah, I'm telling you,
you have any liquid left in your body.
Oh, it's phenomenal. They have these studies that show if you spend 2 to 4 hours where you go, you sit in it, you get out and you cool down naturally. So don't get in a cold plunge or anything like that. You cool down naturally, maybe 5-10 minutes, and then you get back in and you just do that for 2 to 4 hours. It'll increase human growth hormone output like 19-fold. It's phenomenal. And since I started doing that, man, I got blood work done. I'm not like, a bro. I'm not like, well, I'm a bro, but I'm not one of those workout bros. I'm not a gym rat. Right.
Okay.
And my testosterone is 901 overall, which is phenomenal. And all I do is eat mushrooms, hit the sauna, and I'll do some pull-ups and stuff. Like I'm not doing anything crazy. And I think most of that is due to the mushrooms honestly have huge impacts on hormone health, and then also the sauna. But to get back to the story, I had finished up one of my sauna sessions, and I go to the gas station to grab a bottle of San Pellegrino after I'm all done. And there's this guy working there, and he's like, "Oh, what's up, man? What'd you get into tonight?" And I was like, "Yeah, dude. So I ate some mushrooms and I went and sat in the sauna, man. And it was pretty wild. I had some interesting stuff coming up." And he goes, "Man, I wish I could do that." And I had like an ounce of mushrooms in my pocket. So I was like, "You know what, dude? Today's your lucky day. Boom, here you go." And this guy takes the mushrooms. He goes, "Oh, thanks, man. That's so awesome." And I leave, and I don't see him again for a couple of weeks. And then I run into him, and he looks at me like he just saw ghosts. He's like, "Bro, I got to tell you something." I'm like, "Dude, lay it on me. What you got?" He goes, "Man, I took those mushrooms. I was at a concert, and I ate one of those mushrooms, and I freaked out, dude. I had a panic attack. It was terrifying. So I left, and I went home. And I got home, and I was like, well, I'm freaking out. I may as well take more." So I took like 5 grams. And he said, "I ate the mushrooms, and I'm crying, and I'm freaking out. And I look around at my house, and it's disgusting. It's such a mess." And I think back to when I was a kid. He said, "My mom died when I was 19, and she was bedridden for 8 years. And my house was always disgusting. I never had friends over. I was always embarrassed. And he's like, the dog would, piss on the floor and mom would just throw a newspaper on it because she couldn't do a lot. And then she died. And he's like, I kept that with me. Like my house has always been a mess because it reminds me of my mom. And he said, I just broke down, dude. And I sobbed. And then I cleaned my apartment for the first time in like a year. And
Wow.
yeah, dude, it gave me chills, man. He's like, so thank you. Like you changed my life. I'm like, what are you doing right now, bro? He's like, I'm going to get a carpet cleaner. I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, so it's incredible, man. These tools are phenomenal.
I've had some fans reach out and they'd be like, I've heard you talk about shrooms on your podcast, but I just have no idea how I would get them. Would you be willing to mail me some? And I haven't quite got to the point where I want to be like mailing random fans shrooms.
yeah, exactly.
And just use the promo code DROP for 10% off.
Now, with your luck and your name, they'll give you a RICO charge.
And then would you have any advice for Chaps? So Chaps has not tried shrooms, but
just in general, it doesn't have to be drug related.
He did mention that he was diagnosed with bipolar, and I have heard that you want to be really careful with like psychedelics if you're dealing with something like that.
Yeah, man, for sure. I think that when it comes to mushrooms are really safe. It's always okay to start out in smaller doses. But again, dude, I think all of this is just, at the end of the day, if we boil it down into anything, it's increasing awareness. You're already a very aware individual, Chaps, right? I mean, just from talking to you, I can gather that you're self-aware, you're aware of yourself enough to do the exploration without psychedelics, right? So that's good. You have a good framework, right? So you don't necessarily need to go into it, in this dropping the fucking A-bomb on yourself. You don't need to go into it and eat an ounce of mushrooms. But I think
But
I think you'd benefit a lot, man. I think because you already have that framework, man, you already have the ability to look at yourself, So if you're going to eat mushrooms, I highly recommend, man, start out small, man. Try microdosing. Try to introduce yourself to it in a way where all you're doing is giving yourself permission to be more inquisitive, right? To ask yourself, what does this want to show me, right? Donnie, I'm sure you can talk about this. With your experience in Mexico, what kind of, if you don't mind, what kind of communication did you have with the mushrooms when you were down there?
I'm sorry, I just the memory of Donnie getting spit in the face.
Dude, he was the one who started cracking up.
Oh man,
the shaman
what was your experience in Mexico? What do you remember?
And then, so he swallowed water and then spit the water on my face, and Josh starts cracking up, which I don't think he was supposed to do.
No, I got in trouble for that. Tisk, dude. Yeah. No, you want to hear the best part, man? Is I had this insane cathartic experience where I bro, I had a mind-blowing mushroom experience when we were in Mexico. It started out, I was going through this roller coaster ride, looking at a bunch of memes and stuff. I'm like, okay, this is cool, but what does it mean? And then I remembered you got to breathe. You got to meditate. You can't just sit there and just experience it. Cause then you kind of just get brought on this little fugazi. You have to really hone in on your breath. Right. And I start doing that. And all of a sudden it's I'm going up a roller coaster. It's just tick, 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 tick. And I hear ding. And I get off the roller coaster. And all of a sudden I'm in this massive cathedral, this insane insane cathedral. And there are these three faceless entities there. And one of them goes, oh my God, you actually came. And then the second one goes, of course he came. And the third one goes, welcome. We've been waiting for you. And I'm like, oh shit, what am I doing here? They're like, this is where you're from. We sent you down there for a reason. We have a job for you. And I'm like, a job for me, dude? My ego gets all excited. I'm like, man, I'm fucking special, dude. And all of a sudden they go, but we can't tell you yet. I'm like, why can't you tell me? They're like, you still care what other people think about you. And they show me a reel of all of these moments of my life where I'm still doing things for other people. I'm still making decisions for other people's benefit. I'm still, maintaining certain identities to certain people, right? Because I used to have this habit of being everything for everyone. And so it's if one buddy's really into fucking, NASCAR, then I'm into NASCAR. If one buddy really likes MMA, then I can be the biggest MMA fan. And in doing that, I would oftentimes compromise my own beliefs. And I'd be like, whatever. If it makes him feel better, I don't care. And it showed me this slideshow of this, dude. And I came out of it and they're like, look, we're going to see you again soon, but when you leave here, you got to go work on some stuff. Okay. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that. I get it. That makes sense. And they do this like weird thing over me. They're like, we're going to make some upgrades. And they do this weird, like tonal, like sound thing over me. And they're like, all right, like, we'll see you later. And I go, before I go, like, what, is this like necessary? And I like, it's like a cloud moves and I look out at the shaman and at Jarrett. I'm like, is this all necessary? And they like giggle at me. They're like, technically what they're doing is they're putting protection spells on you. They're like, you don't need it here. This is a really safe place. And they point at the floor and it's glass. And these snakes are trying to come up through the floor and they're just hitting the glass. And they're like, you don't need it. This is cool. And I'm like, so it's kind of performative, right? And they like laugh and go, yeah, it's kind of performative. And they're like, all right, see you later, dude. And I go, and all of a sudden I'm just back. Like it's just like I just got thrown back into reality. And I sit up, and the first thing I see when I sit up, dude, is I turn to my left and I see that shaman blowing water in Donnie's face, dude. And I just lose it, man. I started laughing so hard. And then I'm like, okay, gain your composure. All right, we're done laughing. And all of a sudden I hear the chanting in Mazatec, and I open my eyes and he's blowing water in my face, dude. And I just lost it. I absolutely lost it.
See, like I've never done mushrooms or any psychedelics. I just like to smoke weed and watch like Tim Robinson shows. So when you start talking about going up to a cathedral and there's like three, I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, dude. Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Because in my head, I'm like,
totally valid.
I mean, I want to experience because I want to, but in my head, I'm like, and I'm sure everybody that's listening that's never done psychedelics, you're like, that's just fucking bullshit.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, totally.
Well, and also, if you just do like 1 gram of shrooms, you won't be having an experience like that.
Yeah, we took 10 grams of mushrooms. Let's be very clear.
I would love that. They're like pull out a shard blade, like all kinds.
Yeah.
No, I have had experiences like that. In Mexico, I don't know. I didn't really have a super cathartic experience. There was probably just a lot going on around me that it was hard for me to focus on what I was feeling. And I didn't have like a clear goal going into it.
Could have been a loogie in your face.
Yeah. So and I think the fact that the shrooms were wet and not dried out, I think maybe definitely. When they're dried, they're a little more potent. But I still want to release like a mini documentary on the history of magic mushrooms and our trip down to Mexico. I still have all the footage. I plan on releasing that at some point. Maybe as like the grand finale, I should see if they'll let me film like a guided shroom therapy in Colorado or something like that.
Dude, absolutely. Yeah, and I mean,
I'll do it.
Let me know.
$3,500.
Yeah.
Okay.
So here's what I will say, man. There are a ton of facilitators who are underground here. So I'll put that out there. Like, man, it's funny. I'm picking up Rohit from the airport tonight, and we're going to do ayahuasca this weekend. So there's
Rohit was another guy on our retreat. But so dude. You're just doing that in Colorado, right?
Yeah, just in Colorado, man. It's decriminalized. There are a ton of facilitators here. So you don't have to go with the $3,500, state registered facilitator, right? There are plenty of people who can facilitate, plenty of high quality providers. So I just want to make that clear to people. If you are interested in going to Colorado, man, you can do it. There are people you can absolutely get set up, and it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg.
We should do a live stream.
Yeah, dude.
Studio.
A live stream doing shroom assisted therapy.
Yeah.
It's just Chaps crying and Donnie.
Yeah. I love crying. I'm the Steph Curry of crying.
You just
dude.
I can cry from deep range. Out of nowhere. From the parking lot.
Funny. That's a title, dude. The Steph Curry of crying.
Yeah.
That's great, man.
Put it in my Twitter bio.
I would consider that, yeah. I definitely wouldn't live stream an ayahuasca ceremony though, because I don't know.
No, I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to do a live stream of either one. But I would tape everything for sure.
But what would be cool, man, is so Iboga itself. It would be cool to live stream an Iboga ceremony. So here's what's fascinating about Iboga: you're not sleeping, you're not laying down, you're actually dancing most of the time. Isn't that wild? So
if you're doing it with the African tribes,
with the Bwiti tribe. Yeah, dude. If you're doing it with the tribe, they paint you white, they make you eat a bunch of root bark, and then you dance like most of the time, dude. Yeah.
No, that is something I would do. I mean, if I found like a tribe in West Africa willing to host me for an Ibogaine ceremony, boom.
I got a tribe who's willing to host.
But
you guys,
I thought,
Pressure Donnie in the comments here.
yeah, but
Comment if you want Donnie to go eat Iboga. I'll Sherpa you up that mountain, Donnie.
all right, that sounds good. But I remember in Mexico, you mentioned something about knowing someone who went to West Africa and they had a heart attack or something.
Yeah, okay, so I got you. This is something we had talked about bringing up. So I know two people, one who had malaria that they got there. They came home and died when they got home. And then another person who went there, got malaria, and came home and was essentially sick for like a month. So malaria is a big one. I'm gonna let you in on a secret. Most of the Ibogaine people do not get the malaria vaccine. Most of them are like, nah, they get a fake, So, or malaria medication.
Yeah, they're like,
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know.
So if you're gonna go, just take the fucking malaria medication.
Yeah, I would just have to take the pills.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially if you're white. Come on.
Yeah. Yep.
We're built different and not necessarily in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, the Iboga, you could definitely live stream that. It's it's very interesting how the ceremonies are very alive, where ayahuasca is kind of a mix. Like you'll be awake at times, and then at times you'll be completely gone in like a dream world. But what's interesting about Iboga not Iboga, the mushrooms, is that the mushroom ceremony to me was very like, I don't know, dude. One is it's hard. We live in the West, right? So like, dude, I've eaten eighths of mushrooms that were stronger than the 10 grams that I ate in Mexico, right? It's the same as the weed, right? If you're going to go eat mushrooms in Mexico, do it for the cultural experience and the lineage. Don't do it because you want a really, wild trip. You want a really wild trip, bro. Just, find someone who can facilitate here, find a trip sitter, find something like that, and just eat an eighth. Like you'll probably be good. You'll get as much out of it. The other side of the coin is, the reason I'm able to, and being that this is drop a pin, you could even call this one inner spaces, because, I think that, like you said, most people look at this and they're like, yeah, that's Looney Tunes. Like that sounds ridiculous. But to be honest, dude, once you start navigating those inner spaces, it becomes far less insane. Like, dude, here's something really crazy. The way that I got to Mexico and the way that whole experience lined up for me, I had been using the mushrooms in a way that's like, really, I mostly just microdosing, right? And I had this experience where I ate mushrooms. I connected with Jarrett on social media. I talked with Jarrett, and one day I'm on the phone with Jarrett, and Jarrett's like, hey, bro, I want to take a group of people down to Mexico. Would you like to come with us? I'm like, yeah, definitely, dude. How much does it cost? And he's like, honestly, it probably whole thing will probably cost $1,500. It'll be like 10 days. I'm like, my brain immediately goes, I can't afford that. Are you fucking kidding me? $1,500 for 10 days. I got 5 kids. What are you, nuts? And I immediately go, no, I'm not going to say that. And I said to him, you know what? I'm open to whatever the universe has to provide. And he goes, cool. I'm going to count you in. And I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. And immediately, dude, I get off the phone with Jarrett, and I talk to this friend who is actually the girlfriend, the ex-girlfriend of one of my friends, right? And I talked to her, and we've met one time in real life, right? And she hits me up and she's like, yo, I want to help you with something. I don't know what it is, but I want to help you with something. And I'm like, oh man, this is weird. I just got this opportunity to go with Jarrett down to Mexico and to sit with Maria Sabina's grandson, Bernardino. And she goes, okay, cool. What's your Venmo? And immediately sends me the money to pay for it. Like that, dude.
I need some phone calls like that.
Bro, I'm telling you that it's weird. The mushrooms have dude, one time I was in the sauna.
If you want me and Donnie to go, my Venmo is open at Uncle Chaps. You can Venmo me or Donnie and we'll go.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys got enough fans. I'm sure there's a facilitator in here who'd be down, man. One time, dude, I took mushrooms. I was in the sauna. I'd eaten some mushrooms. I'm sitting in there and I'm talking with this guy. He gets out and he pulls out a bag, and it's like a Chiba Chew Louis Vuitton bag. And I'm like, damn, dude, when did they collaborate, dude? And he goes, I bought like almost $1 million worth of Chiba Chews last year. So they gifted it to me. And I was like, oh, fuck.
Chiba Chews,
nice,
is that
dude.
a weed gummy?
Yeah, it's like Tootsie Rolls, but for weed.
Okay.
Essentially, that's what it started as. I don't know what they do now. Maybe it's just edibles. But
I thought he said Pikachu.
Oh,
like
no.
Pokemon.
Yeah.
I was like, that's
so
wild.
Yeah.
so I'm talking to this dude, and he's like, talking about the weed industry, and I'm like, man, how are you doing right now? I know the weed industry's in free fall. And the guy goes, Yeah, that's right, man. Yeah. Mostly at the time, most people were not aware of that. And he goes, but there's a new green rush on the way. And I'm like, talking about the mushrooms, right? And he kind of was like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. He goes, yeah, we're in the process of developing mushroom edibles, mushrooms, packaging, branding, all that. And the second we get the go ahead, we're going to open mushroom dispensaries. And he opens his bag and he gives me some mushroom gummies and some mushrooms. And at the time, I was trying to help someone connect with someone who could build a mushroom grow facility, right? And I was looking for one of those container conversions where they convert a Connex container into a mushroom grow. And I told him that, I'm like, do you happen to know anyone who I could connect with who could help me build a mushroom grow facility? And this dude goes, I don't, but I'll tell you what, the mushrooms are going to help you find someone. And I was like, okay, this is way before the going to Mexico. I'm like, okay, sure, right on, good to meet you, dude. Safe trails. And I get in the sauna and this monster of a dude comes in. He's got cauliflower ear. I do jujitsu. So we end up having a conversation about jujitsu and we're chilling and the mushrooms are kicking in. And I go, hey man, what do you do for a living? He goes, yeah, I own a company. We make custom mushroom grow facilities. And I was like, bro, what the fuck, man? Is this
mushroom
real?
provides.
Well, there you go.
It does,
I don't
man.
know if Chaps buys into that yet, but
It's okay, not yet. But there's something really interesting. If you actually look at mushrooms, we're more closely related to mushrooms than we are to plants. We separated from mushrooms, more closely than we did to plants. Plants, like genetically, we're very related to mushrooms. That's why they work so well for so many things, right? Like mushrooms work for cancers, right? You've got Paul Stamets talking about his mom's breast cancer and how she was able to essentially cure her cancer using turkey tail mushrooms, right? You've got lion's mane mushrooms that are phenomenal for a number of things, including just like regulating brain function, right? And your ability to like enhance your cognitive abilities, right? That's incredible, bro. The fact that a mushroom can do that is kind of insane. Now we take psilocybin mushrooms, and as we start to analyze those, we see this theme of neuroplasticity, where they're increasing neuroplasticity. And when we look at from the fundamental level, a lot of the disease that we have in society and as a culture, a lot of it comes down to not having the ability to repair the brain properly. Like so many things fuck up our brains, whether it's environmental, whether it's post-traumatic stress disorder experiences like that. Like there are so many of these. Yeah, dude, absolutely, man. Yeah. If anyone, man, and I wish I could say names, but I know a handful of prominent NFL players who are involved in plant medicine, and it saved their lives, man. Like they have gone from being, yeah, like I'm talking like, word soup every time they talk, to like being able to communicate properly. Like CTE is a real problem. The NFL has a real problem with traumatic brain injury. So does the NHL. So does the UFC. So, it's like when that's the case, like we need solutions that actually help us solve problems, not solutions that just put a Band-Aid on it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Paul Bissonnette.
Exactly right.
If it wasn't for shrooms, he wouldn't be a successful podcaster.
Mm-hmm.
Just and, word.
Well,
but I don't know if that's true at all. Yeah, Josh, thanks so much for coming on. Where can people listen to your music?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we didn't touch up on that much, but but my name is Fatherhood the Rapper. I go by Fatherhood the Rapper more than Josh. So if anyone wants to check out my music, you can just look it up. It's Fatherhood the Rapper. It's available everywhere. I talk about a lot of these themes: psychedelics, plant medicine, recovery, the human condition, all that jazz. So you can find me on Instagram at The Life of Fatherhood, and everywhere else is just Fatherhood the Rapper. Nice. So yeah, man.
And Josh actually mailed me a book, which I haven't finished it yet, but once I do, it's going to be the topic for a high school segment.
Love it.
Yeah, about one of the Rockefellers who went missing in Papua New Guinea.
Yeah, dude. Absolutely. One of my favorite stories, favorite books too, man. It's incredible, dude.
Sweet.
I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, no problem. Chaps, go eat some mushrooms, man.
All right, I'm on
it. Right on, guys. Appreciate you, man. Thanks for having me on.
All right, take care, Josh.
All right, peace, guys.
Today's episode of Drop a Pin is brought to you by our friends at Marzetti. Cool down the flame when you dip your Marzetti ranch on game day. This is my first year really doing gardening, and I've been pumped about it. I've been planting different stuff. I have different kind of peppers. The jalapeno peppers that I made are entirely too hot. So what I've been doing is dipping those bad boys in ranch and eating the peppers as like a little snack. I have insane diarrhea from the jalapenos, but it does cool down the ranch, or does cool down the jalapenos, which is delicious. Great snack.
Yeah, little kind of like homemade jalapeno popper.
Yeah.
I put ranch on everything, especially the spicy ranch. I think Marzetti has a spicy ranch that's made with Tabasco sauce. Ranch and pizza. That's my move.
Yep. So don't fumble your food. Get the good ranch for game day. Even if your team loses a bunch of games this season and your parlays don't play out, your mouth can still be a winner on game day when you ranch with Marzetti. Just visit marzetti.com to learn more or find Marzetti Ranch at your local grocery store. It's refrigerated. That's how you know it's good. It's by the fruits and veggies. Go get some today. Pick up a couple bottles. Treat yourself with some ranch from Marzetti.
Drop a Pin is also brought to you by Huel. Fall is near. School and work are ramping up. Life is busy for all of us. I get it. You get it. Time is tough to come by, especially to get a meal that helps you towards your goals. Fortunately, Huel gets it too. It's spelled Huel, and their Black Edition powder is a complete meal so you feel full, focused, and ready for your day. And just when you thought Huel had everything covered, they just dropped a first-of-its-kind Super Greens drink in a can. I don't get enough greens in my day-to-day life. Being able to just get all those greens in one can sounds incredible. So it's called Huel Daily Greens Ready to Drink. So forget powders, forget pills. I've tried the powders. I can never mix them up. It's always chalky at the bottom. But this can be your new daily greens. Sparkling, refreshing, and ready whenever you are. I'm obsessed with this new product and start every day with it. So, get down with Huel. Are you a big fruits and veggies guy at home, or?
Brother, you know I am. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah.
but
You're a gardener now.
Yeah, this takes it to the next level, though. Together, Huel makes healthy eating simple. Try both today. 15% off your purchase for new customers with our exclusive code WONTON at Huel, HUEL.com/wonton. Again, that's HUEL.com/wonton. Fill it out today with that code. Post-checkout survey to help support the show. Anytime you can mention us or use the promo code, it does help out the podcast, so make sure you're doing that. Support us by supporting our advertisers, which is, again, Huel.com/wonton.
Love how the code is wonton. I'm trying to transition into a wonton and not a Donnie anymore. There's too many Donnies and Dons at this company. It gets confusing. You can call me wonton.
I've been doing that.
Feel free.
Like when we come in, we're doing like different videos together. I'll be like wonton.
Boom. I love it. So use code wonton for 50% off and fuel your day with Huel greens in a can.
Welcome back to Getting Cultured. We're going to do another edition of High History is what it's called. We are all sufficiently high. We have done our part. So what we're going to try to do is Sam is going to talk to us about history and explain some stuff while he looks like he is absolutely on Jupiter.
Exactly.
I'm pretty fried.
Okay.
And if you don't know who Sam is, well, you probably do by
You just
now
listen
since
to
he
him.
was on the rest of this episode.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to try to cover 10,000 years of history here.
Oh,
so excuse me if it...
Ambitious. Love that.
Yeah, and I don't know how long we wanted to go with these, so let me know if I'm rambling.
You just rip.
All right, so...
I mean, should we try to give him any time constraints? Because
I think I can
No.
do this.
all right,
I was,
rip. If
I was more nervous I
you're
wouldn't
just
have
kind
it.
of just going on and on about some bullshit, I mean,
yeah,
we're
well,
It's
gonna
just
wrap
vibes.
it up.
We're just going on vibes. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And please do, if I start rambling, reel me back in. Like I said, I'm rather fried.
You're a
at the
great
moment.
storyteller. I think we'll be
All
all right.
right,
Shut up, Dave.
so...
I told you not to speak during this segment.
I want to talk about this group called the Yamnaya, who are a fucking ancient European tribe. They're very interesting. But before we get to the Yamnaya, I kind of just have to set the stage. So European peoples, like all the European countries. What's this look?
I was mentally
Yeah.
setting the stage.
He's preparing himself.
fair
Yeah.
I was
enough.
mid-stage setup.
Yeah.
Fair enough. All the European peoples kind of are a blend of 3 different groups that geneticists would call Western hunter-gatherers, or they will use the acronym WHG if you're like, reading shit. Early European farmers, EEF, and Western steppe herders, WSH. And you can think of all European peoples exist in this like continuum on a scale where at one end you would have like Sardinians who really don't have any Western steppe herder. They're almost all just hunter-gatherer and early European farmer. And then at the far other end you'd have like people from like Finland or like the Baltics maybe, who don't have as much of that early European farmer, but they're almost entirely steppe herder and hunter-gatherer. Everyone else in Europe, the Slavs, the Italians, the British, the Poles, the Scandinavians, they all fall somewhere in between that. And that's kind of what makes them Europeans, is this 3-way combination of Western hunter-gatherer genetics, Western steppe herder genetics, and early European farmer genetics. So like 12,000 years ago, coming out of the Ice Age, it's only hunter-gatherers in Europe. It's just hunter-gatherers. They actually think like evolutionary biologists. They think they might have been on average taller, a little more robust, like maybe even healthier. I was reading saw some Twitter thread a couple weeks ago that linked to a peer-reviewed paper where this evolutionary biologist was claiming that human IQ has been decreasing since 12,000 BC. Like not in massive amounts, but just in small little increments. The average human IQ has actually been going down for about 12,000 years.
How do we know what someone's IQ was 12,000 years ago?
I'll be honest, now you're asking questions above my pay grade.
It kind of makes sense because think about like the actual work that you had to do mentally to survive there.
Yes.
Everything has gotten progressively easier.
Yes.
So you're like looking to discover not just ways like things on the internet, but actually how to survive by like making fire, making wheels, like doing all that
things
stuff.
to think for us.
You would have had to be such a like polymath to successfully survive in Ice Age Eurasia. Just understanding like seasons and knowing about emergency medicine and all like different types of plants, which ones will kill you, which ones like. So you either have to be that wired to know all this different stuff, or if you're just a dumb person, you're not passing your genes on in that world. Like you're getting snuffed out. Eventually, those lines, those lineages disappear. You're left with a very like competent group of people. And then we start planting shit in the ground somewhere in the Fertile East, the Middle Crescent, Middle East Fertile Crescent, the Levant. They start growing crops around 10,000 BC as we're coming out of the last ice age. And as they start mastering not only like crop domestication, but also animal domestication, some of those groups in like Anatolia, what today would be like southern Turkey, northern Syria, Iraq, they start moving and they get into like Greece and Bulgaria, and they take 2 paths. One group kind of finds the Danube River and uses the Danube as like a superhighway, the original European superhighway. And the other group just hugs the coastline. So they're just, first down around Greece and then up Croatia and down Italy, all the way over to Spain. And over a few thousand years, so now we're talking maybe like from 8,000 BC to like by 5,000 BC, they've made it to like England. So, from starting in like around Istanbul, up the Danube, down the coastline, farming spreads all across Europe. And that is those early European farmers running into those Western hunter-gatherers. And those groups are colliding. And most of the place, in most cases, it's early European farmers displacing and dominating the hunter-gatherers. Because if you were farming, you could, have people who specialized in other shit because you had excess food. So not everyone just had to be gathering food. you could have bigger populations. So the hunter-gatherers just eventually lose. What's actually really interesting about that, though, is like we know from looking at the genetics that the hunter-gatherers would lose initially and maybe even for a period of like centuries. But because these early European farmers were not hunter-gatherers, when there would be flooding or crop failures, or they would find themselves in situations where like you actually do need to be a subsistence hunter in this moment, they would be fucked. So like there is a resurgence of these hunter-gatherer groups, and we can tell by looking at like the paternal haplogroups when you do DNA and you're looking at the genomes and stuff. We can say like, oh shit, the farmers showed up here and they dominated for 1,000 years. But then it was actually some of these hunter-gatherer groups, which we know, like looking at the DNA, it was somebody's, you know, father's father down the line. They start dominating again. This is all still setting the stage for the Yamnaya. At this point, you know, you're like 4,000 years ago, the hunter-gatherers and the early European farmers have merged. Everyone in Europe is basically farming. They've got fucking small-scale animals, whatever, chickens, you know, goats, sheep. And off in like eastern Ukraine, southern Russia, an area which, you know, has been pretty relevant the last few years at
Here
least.
comes the topic, by the way.
Yeah.
All of that was just
We're talking
setting
about-
the stage. Now we're on to the
Actually,
actual
that
topic.
is what I want to talk to him about on Friday, I think.
But I
To
think
continue.
I think it'll be, this won't even be that long. But yeah, so you're at this period now, like, I guess what would be the Bronze Age? I think it's like the beginning of the Bronze Age. And out there on the steppes of southern Russia and eastern Ukraine, this group emerges, which, I don't know, we call the Yamnaya. And we like, you can identify them, you know, genetically when you find remains and stuff. And this group, the Yamnaya, they probably like were the first ones to master the wheel. And we think they were probably like the first ones to domesticate the horse. So
Game changer.
suddenly, what?
Game changer.
Yeah.
Total fucking
Yeah.
game changer. Suddenly you've got these people who are sitting atop of horses and they're able to drag these big wagons behind them with wheels turning.
Using
and they
horsepower.
Yeah, and they can use those wagons to set up, you know, defensive perimeters or carry, you know, extra soldiers on the back of them, whatever. Chariots wouldn't come for like another couple thousand years, but the wagon at first was just everything. And these Yamnaya people, you know, what's crazy is they were probably some of the first to like be eating a lot of dairy because you have horses and cows. They're nomadic pastoralists out there on the steppe. So they're really not like sticking around one spot and growing crops all that often. They could, but they're mostly just nomadic pastoralists. They've got big herds and they're moving them across the steppe.
Can you milk horses?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Mare's milk. That's what they drink in Mongolia, like fermented horse milk.
I never seen that.
I've never even seen a horse titty, to be honest.
That's what I was thinking. What are they yanking on? Those are tiny little nipples. Udders.
Have you ever seen a
Excuse
horse
me.
tit? Dave, you probably have. You literally own horses and you love tits.
I think it's so. This is one of Chief's fun facts. Like somewhere along the line of evolution, this is way off topic.
That's okay.
Human men became so enamored with female tits that eventually women grew tits while they were not lactating and giving birth and breastfeeding at the time. So yes, tits are like actually evolution to attract the male partner. So they're the only. So like you see a pregnant dog. A female dog doesn't have tits unless she's pregnant or breastfeeding, you know?
okay.
That must
yes.
have been like hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years ago. Like
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, and you got to fact check that, obviously, but it makes sense if you think about
I'm gonna
it.
take that as
I like
gospel.
that.
You know?
I love the theory.
I think, like, when a horse is
So you're
pregnant,
saying
she'll
none
have
of the other
tits.
animals out there are
No,
tit guys?
I'm looking
There have
at
to
it
be-
right now.
There
These
has to
are
be another
tiny
animal
tits.
species that also likes tits, right?
They're
don't
not,
know,
like,
man.
attracted
Monkeys?
to them.
Do monkeys like tits?
I think they do. They grow some
Bonobos
absolute
No,
are
but
more
just
like-
because they grow 'em. But do you ever
They're
see like
ass men, right? They're the one
monkeys
that's
doing
the
foreplay
big
and he's
butts,
like
right?
playing with like a female monkey's tits?
Yeah, I've seen them do like all kinds of weird stuff.
Okay, all right.
Then I was talking
Like
monkey tits.
bonobos.
Monkeys are
Yeah.
monkeys are
was
tits,
talking
guys.
Bony bows are absolutely. They like everything though.
Yeah,
Tits,
they're just-
cock,
Well,
whatever.
yes. But yeah, these Yamnaya people, they've got these cows, they've got these horses, and they're sitting atop these horses, which like, yeah, would have been pretty damn revolutionary if you just think suddenly distance you can cover in a day is farther than any other human group on Earth.
Imagine seeing the first person to do that.
Yeah,
You'd be
well, I mean,
like,
they have those
"What
reports of
the
like
fuck?"
when the conquistadors get to Mexico
Mm-hmm.
and the Native American, the indigenous people, literally think that it's one creature.
They thought it was a centaur.
Yeah, they think.
Yeah.
They didn't understand till the conquistadors got off the horses and stepped down. Like it wasn't one massive thing.
That would be so scary.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this Yamnaya group, they're out there on the steppe, and they're probably milking cows and horses and developing dairy, like, you know, realizing if you can turn milk into cheese and butter, it lasts longer and you can travel over the steppe with it, and it's, you know, good, gets you through a winter. What's interesting about that is the genetic mutation that allowed for lactose tolerance and eventually ended up in most European people, that didn't come along until like way more recently than you would expect. I want to say it was like only a couple thousand years ago. So at this point, these people would have just been ripping ass.
Bad
They
farts.
were,
Bad farts, Uncle
like,
Chaps.
they
Like
were the-
Donnie, he just
Yeah.
farted like a second, didn't you?
Oh, he's a big time.
No,
He'll fart
no,
anyway.
I got my farts out early.
Oh,
I'm good now.
They
Maybe
were
it
the
was
first
Lady
people
Man.
who were like probably super into dairy production, but lactose tolerance was like still another 1,000 years down the road. So you can imagine what they're.
So,
yeah.
like, as a species, have humans been lactose intolerant more than they've been tolerant?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I mean most humans like still aren't.
Yeah,
lactose
not- yeah.
tolerant. You know, Europeans do tend to be, and again, this is part of the reason why, because these Western steppe herders ended up developing a mutation that was very advantageous.
Well,
Tell
it
the
is
people about
weird when
Asians
you
with an
think
ass,
about it.
Donnie.
What?
Like breastfeeding off
They
of
do.
other animals
Those
is
chicks
weird.
are not lactose intolerant.
Yeah, right.
It's very weird to be like we're the only ones that go after other species milk, breastfeeding
Yes.
as full ass adults.
Like we keep cows in a lactation process so we can,
You know what's really crazy, and we're not going to get to the bottom of it, but to try to dwell on like how humans evolved to like, or how milk just evolved in general, that like a baby is born and then your body naturally creates like the most nutritious substance ever.
Colostrum.
Yeah, that can then just like feed the kids.
Yeah.
I think it originally came from like a sweat gland in like a ancient mammal ancestor. And then like, yeah,
Did you guys try your wife's breast milk?
I did eventually.
How was it?
It was not bad.
Not bad. Okay.
Yeah, it was a little.
I don't mean that in a weird way, obviously.
No.
Like
Probably.
I know people do
'cause
it.
I have that.
saltier.
I evolved to like titties, so I probably tasted it.
Yeah. All right.
Didn't Hank
So-
eat his
wait,
mom's
so-
out of the
so they
fridge or
just-
something?
Going with
What?
this, yeah.
Handsome
So
Hank.
these
like-
Yamnaya people, they're out there, they got dairy, they're riding horses, and eventually
And they have wagons.
they have wagons, and eventually they just explode out in like every direction. The guys who head east eventually make it to like the northern Indian plain, and they're the people who like bring Sanskrit, and I mean these are the forebears of all the Indo-European languages. So as they spread out from eastern Ukraine, southern Russia, west, south, east, their languages become like, you know, the Iranian languages, and, you know, Punjabi and Hindu, like what I think that family is called, what, Indo-Iranic languages?
Yeah.
Like Kurdish, and then everything in Europe, from Greek to all the Romance languages, all of the Slavic languages, Germanic, like English, Norse languages, they all are part of the Indo-European language family. And linguists, you know, can go back and do like, what's the word I'm looking for? But like reconstruction of proto-languages based on the similarities that languages
Yeah.
have. Like if you look
Like
at
the lexiconology.
yeah, right. Philologist is like that's what Tolkien was, I think. But like Lithuanian and Sanskrit, because they are both really kind of closer compared to something like English to the Proto-Indo-European. Even though Lithuania and, you know, modern day
That's
Hindu
wild.
are separated by thousands and thousands of miles, if you look at a really basic sentence for like words that would have existed thousands of years ago. So I think the sentence I've seen before is something like, "The mouse is in the field." That sentence in Lithuanian and in Sanskrit are like almost the same fucking sentence.
That's insane.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So it's through these Yamnaya people who, as they move west into Europe, they become what archaeologists or anthropologists call the corded ware culture, which is kind of where like eventually Proto-Germanic people come from. And then as they move even further west, they become the bell beaker culture, which is kind of where eventually Proto-Celtic groups come from. And they make it across the English Channel eventually. And they get to there like a couple centuries after Stonehenge has been built, the first structure at Stonehenge. And as they were doing basically everywhere they went, they just fucking killed everybody. And we know this because geneticists can look at like where most paternal haplogroups in European men originate from. And our paternal haplogroups almost all originate from, or the vast majority of them. Like R1A is the biggest paternal haplogroup in Central and Eastern Europe, and R1B is the biggest one in Western Europe and the British Isles. Those are both Yamnaya paternal haplogroups. Most European men carry one of those two. And our maternal haplogroups, if you go your mom's, those are all more indigenous to Europe. Those either come from early European farmer groups or they come from Western hunter-gatherer groups. So what does that tell geneticists? It tells geneticists that when the Yamnaya came through Europe, all of the men were eliminated, completely removed from the, genetic lineage of Europe. And yes, they would take women as, brides, war captives, whatever. But like the story of European history is Yamnaya men wiping out all of the hunter-gatherer, or at least the vast majority of hunter-gatherer and early European farmer men, taking their women as wives, and basically giving us all of the languages of Europe, with the exception of Hungarian, Estonian, and Finnish are technically not Indo-European languages. And Basque. Basque is also a language isolate.
Yeah.
So people think Basque may have been like...
Wait, before we move on, do you think those people were cannibals?
Who?
The folks
Yamnaya?
The Yamnaya?
Yeah, or just in general. Like, when do you think people
were,
figured out you can't eat other people?
I think there is evidence of
like
maybe
cheese.
like ritualistic, like post-battle cannibalism.
Yeah.
Probably more recently than people would want to admit.
Yeah, I mean, if you kill an opposing king, you got to at least sample his heart. But,
Oh, yeah. Oh, you're going heart?
I'm just saying, if I was putting myself in their shoes, they would probably want something symbolic like the heart.
I'm throwing a thigh.
I don't think the heart
at
would taste the best.
225 over a split.
Yeah.
But also, what's also interesting is like they gave the languages of Europe, but they also provided like, if you kind of go back and you look for the, what is it called, like comparative mythology. So like the Greek pantheon is very similar to the Roman pantheon. And everyone kind of knows that, Ares is Mars or whatever, Jupiter is Zeus. But even like the Norse gods and the Germanic gods and the Slavic
Phoenician
gods and the Indian, the Hindu gods, you can kind of, again, the same way they do with linguists, with language, you can do this reconstruction where you look at the similarities. And there probably was this Indo-European, this Yamnaya pantheon of like early gods, where there was definitely a sun god, a war god, like a god that represented spring and fertility, and kind of like a Mother Earth god, all these interesting similarities. So yeah, they're incredibly important people in like the history of Europe. But of course, they didn't have a written language. They left no history of their own. By 2500 BC, basically, their horse, their wagon, their language, their gods have spread all the way the fuck across Europe. Even reached India, reached Iran.
So even like today, everybody in this room is part Yamnayanese. Yeah, and then you could say that about.
I was showing him my 23andMe at the bar the other day.
Or something like that.
Yes, for sure. Yeah,
at least in the paternal haploid groups.
Yes. It's, I don't know. It's really...
The Yamnaya don't get enough respect.
So, true. Great point.
At all. I've never heard of them till just now. So where was like the end, I guess?
Like, how far did they reach?
Yeah, no, not how far did they
Like, where
reach,
does
but
the
like,
history end?
yeah, not their history, but like when was it no longer the Yamnaya? It's like
Well,
separate.
so as they mix with those groups,
Yeah.
they turn into things like I was saying. There's a culture they call corded ware culture, which is they call them that just because of like a pattern on their pottery fragments that we find. And then there's the bell beaker culture. They call them that because their pottery looks like a bell-shaped beaker. And again, you're still so back far in time here that like these people didn't leave written history.
Right.
Like there wasn't even a group like the Romans to get secondhand stuff from them from. So we've really gone off like these pottery finds. But over the last 20 years or so, the DNA stuff has just been a complete game changer. Because now they have the ability to, like, when they get these grave remains, you can do, if you can extract usable DNA, you can look at the entire genome and, like, people can come up with theories. You can come up with theories about what Herodotus may have said about some group 1,000 years before, 1,000 miles away, or what their pottery might infer. And anyone can come up with lots of weird theories, but like to a certain extent, the genetics don't lie.
No,
when you look at the genetics, like that's the proof right there.
Right.
So yeah, it's very interesting. And even with the Yamnaya stuff, there's like a lot of competing hypotheses. Like there's one is like, okay, well, did they come down through Anatolia, or did they go like through Western Ukraine and down through Romania? Because like Greek is an Indo-European language, as is Armenian, but they're not anywhere as close to like the way that German and Russian and Italian and Spanish are all much closer. So there is like, I don't know, debate. I'm rambling now. That was my high history.
I love it.
I thought that was absolutely fucking fantastic.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go on such a stoned ass,
but I loved it.
I feel like I got the gist.
No, I got the gist. I think.
I feel like I could.
If you can just visualize the map and kind of where they disperse to, their diaspora,
like the dispersion, like totally makes sense.
There's also like they had this idea, or they think they had this idea about like boys being dogs, and there being like this ritual, this manhood initiation ritual where a dog becomes a wolf, and like once you as a dog, a boy, become a wolf, a man, like you can participate in these like tribal raiding events, these wolf pack events, which they think they called the kurios. Was like, that's how they think they spread, is like boys between the ages of 15 and 20 would kind of get put in these kurios groups, and they would essentially get kicked out of their home. Like, hey, our little group, you're taking up resources, you're an extra mouth to feed, you're not a kid anymore, why don't you go be a wolf and join, like, get some more land for us? And these groups of 15 to 20,
That's
25-year-old boys.
David Goggins method too.
Be a wolf.
Yeah. And they were really into like saunas and steam baths, and that's they think a lot of the original, like,
who isn't,
just bathhouse culture today might originate with the way that they kind of revered like natural hot springs and
yeah. But bathhouse culture, like if you go to China or Japan, that didn't come from the Yamnaya.
No, yeah,
everybody loves a good bath.
It's like a flood myth. Everyone has their own flood
it's
myth.
weird.
Yeah.
Everyone loves their own bathhouse.
It's like the Aborigines and the Incas have the exact same word for sweet potato or something like that.
Well, that's a whole crazy thing. Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
yeah.
The Polynesians.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. So the
And
Polynesians
it's
on
like,
those
wait,
islands,
hold
yeah.
on.
Genes don't lie.
That's part
Yes.
over there, and they're over here on the map. They couldn't get to each other. How?
They think what probably happened is like
they made some mean rafts.
Oh yeah,
like,
they had to have. Either that or
genetics
aliens.
don't
Well, I've
lie.
seen Moana.
Yes.
Yeah.
Make
And
way.
They have found those Polynesian genetics in like very isolated native groups along the
Yep.
western coast of South America. But I remember watching a video on this like a couple years ago. They think it probably wasn't that Polynesians were actually doing like
Trans-Pacific.
like settlements. They weren't being like, we're gonna go, found a new settlement on the coast of South America. It was probably like over the centuries, different isolated groups of Polynesians would get swept off, and their raft would hit the coast, and somehow they would get taken into a tribe, and their genetics would enter this tribe.
That's a long fucking way to
It's a
float.
long fucking way to float, Uncle Chaps.
Yeah, but you think
But yet,
No, I mean
over
it's-
the centuries.
No, yeah,
also,
like,
definitely
if you can
possible.
fish and you have something to catch rain, then you're not gonna starve to
And
death.
they were
You'll
already
always
the
have
best
water.
seafarers alive. So, you know,
True,
if there's
yeah.
anyone
Fresh
to get
fish and
lost at
water.
sea, it's an ancient
And there was
Polynesian.
there was so much more fish
now he's
too
stumped.
back in the day.
Oh yeah, just drop a line, boom.
I read this. I was reading. I forget who it was. David Bryson or Bill Bryson.
Great author.
And yeah, he's amazing. He was talking about how scientists believe that 98% of all animals who have ever lived are extinct.
Dude, well, you know what I was reading the other day?
makes sense.
Is like we are the only like in the genus of sapiens or whatever, primate or yeah.
Sapien.
No, there's other primates. In the genus of sapiens, we're the only one left.
Yeah, there was like
And-
I saw
yeah.
this the other day.
And
There
they're
was like
saying, like,
6 or 7 at one point, and we're the only one left.
If you look at other genuses, once they get down to one species within the genus, that's usually really bad news. Like, I guess
All
what
right,
would the last
let's
one
try to
have
end
been?
this
pretty
episode on
grim.
a high note.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're still talking on like a 200,000 year playing field here. But,
And on that note, Sam, thanks for joining us, my friend.